Well, I mean, it's the rule of eight. Hey, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 8 of Revolutionary Girl Utena. I'm really excited about this. I know that the rule of 8 is probably not going to apply to this actual series. If you don't know what the rule of 8 is, really quick, anytime that there is an 11 to 13 episode series on my channel, I always maintain that the 8th episode is really special. It's always usually really good. Obviously, this is a 39 episode series, so the rule of 8 probably isn't going to apply, but we don't know. I haven't watched the preview for this week, so who knows what's going to happen. But 8 is my lucky number as well, so I put on my favorite reaction shirt. I got myself some coffee, and I'm super excited because even if it's not like a revolutionary episode, it's probably going to be good because the series has been great so far, right? So I've got some comments I want to talk about before we dive into this episode, but I'm super, super, super excited. Last week was a lot of fun as we got stuff on Jury, which was super intense, and she's a really fascinating character, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, Jury. So I mean, I'm really excited. We've met literally everybody in the group. Honestly, the ones that are the most mysterious still to me are Kiryu and Saionji, the two first ones we met, because we know bare bones about their character, but literally nothing else. And I want to know more about their motivations. So maybe we'll get that. But I do have some comments I want to talk about. Pancake posted from Grunge Hamster on YouTube that this was the commentary for episode 4, which was Sunlit Garden. The Sunlit Garden is a song about the world you can never get back. We talked about that in the episode. The nostalgic world you can never return to again. And then there's some text that is not translated in English. I made such a radical departure in the second half of this that you might as well ask yourself, is this the same show? I did it to solidify the position of Nanami's and Anthy's characters, but by storyboarding stage, Anthy was becoming more of a mysterious girl. Meanwhile, Nanami became more of an entertaining girl. Oh, Nanami is so entertaining. Totally agree. Is that all right? Sure, it's all right. I think that it is totally cool that Anthy is mysterious because she's kind of like right there. She's always there, but yet there's still a lot about her we don't know. So I think that's a good move. Don't reveal all your cards, especially this early in the game, right? I decided to operate according to the rule, never give a character one personality. I didn't want to reject fun on the grounds of I can't get this character to be uniformly consistent. I think that is noticeable at this point in the series already because you have like Jury who can be calm, cool, and collected, and then last episode she lashes out emotionally. You can see Kiryu be kind of seemingly stoic and in charge person, but yet he's also desperate for them not to leave the student council or disband it. And then you have Saionji who tries to present this tough persona and then just emotionally melts down. And so yeah, all these characters have very diverse personalities and they're not all just one facet. They're very multifaceted, which is really cool. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I really liked episodes 4 and 5. They were a lot of fun, which this whole series has been so far. So I did want to point out that Pancake also noted that Utena, because of her obliviousness to being noticed, to noticing Anthy's and her relationship building, is often called Pink Brick, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Affectionately, of course. Affectionately called that. So I thought that was interesting. And then also, I thought about this theory after Pancake's comment as well. I was thinking about this during editing. The ring that was given to Utena from her prince, it's the prince's ring, right? So is that how his presence is transferred to her via the power of Dios? Is it because she has the ring that she's able to like conduct his presence and use it through the sword of Dios that she's gotten from Anthy? Is that how that's working? I don't know, but that could be a theory. If it's the prince's ring, then maybe that's why she's able to be possessed by him in moments of desperation. We'll see if we get any explanation to that later on, but it's a theory. Oliver Jajado points out that Utena is an unreliable narrator. Potentially, yes, because in episode 3, it was pointed out that her dream with the prince is perhaps not accurate. Now, I joked that Her confusing Kiryu with the prince. I was like, really? They look nothing alike. But that does bring up a good point. She's remembering the dream one way, and is that the reality or not? Does the prince even look like he does in the ED? We don't know yet. We've not met him fully. We've just seen her dream. But also it's like, are the ages accurate? Because she seems older there and not a kid. But time-wise, she would be a kid unless she's been reincarnated and the dream is from her past life. So there's lots of factors to her story that aren't confirmed. And that does bring up the idea that she could be an unreliable narrator, which I'm all for unreliable narrators. I think they make the story less predictable and you kind of be like, oh, can we trust her? Can we trust her memory? So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. And then Francesca White 4166 talked about how in episode 3, Anthy is told by Utena that she needs to make friends. And Anthy says, well, I have Choo Choo as my friend. But she doesn't acknowledge Utena as a friend because they're still just getting to know each other. But then by the time that Utena saves or defends Anthy later on, Anthy recognizes her as like her first friend. That she did it not because she had to or wanted anything in return, just because she was being nice. I'm like, that's very, very sweet. So yeah, I thought that was all really good things to point out. Very important to note. But I'm super excited to see what we get in episode 8. And I've had some people say I can watch the previews and some people say no, don't watch the previews. So I think it will just determine how I feel each episode. If the episode kind of leaves off and is just very episodic like the last couple have been, I'm fine not watching the previews because I want to be surprised the following week. But if it's like an episode that seems like a 2-parter, then I'm not going to tell you all that I'm going to resist the temptation to look. So we'll just see as we go. And I was asked by Bright Girl on the Discord if I was going to read the light novels or check out the manga. Someone on Twitter has offered to send me the manga, which I'm like, cool, if you don't want it. I don't want you to just throw it away. Okay. You don't have to, but okay. I'm not going to turn it down. So they're going to send me the manga. I didn't have plans on reacting to the manga, and I didn't have plans on reading the light novel, if I'm being honest, because I feel like 39 episodes and a movie is going to be enough, but it's only episode 8, so it's way too early to ask me. I'm like hyper organized to like a clinical level, and just the thought of trying to plan ahead, like I almost want to like get a calendar out and start planning ahead, and then I just need to stop. So too soon to say. I'm going to say no right now, but subject to change. But don't hold me to it. I don't like the pressure of somebody being like, are you going to do this? I'm like, we're only 8 weeks in. We still got like 30 weeks to go. But we'll see. I'm going to say no right now, but it's subject to change. So in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. I'm super excited. I hope you all are as well. But we're going to dive into episode 8 of Revolutionary Girl Utena. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I think the cat shirt was relevant. Okay, I am slowly coming to the conclusion that in this 39 episode series, there are likely going to be some episodes where things are just batshit crazy, and I'm here for it. I have a feeling we may need some levity as this series goes on. So episode 6 and episode 8, give it to me. I'm here for it. And plus, I think it's so funny that they get to go through these scenarios where they just put Nanami through the worst things possible, and Saionji. Although the preview did show us that there's going to be some serious stuff happening with Saionji and Anthy, so maybe this was just kind of prefacing that for us, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, crazy stuff. So next week's going to be wild, which they were just like, buckle in your seatbelts and enjoy this fun shenanigans and happy-go-lucky romp, because it's not going to be like that next week. And I'm like, oh, okay. Should have saved my shirt for next week, but it's fine. It's fine. I'll get to wear this again, I'm sure. So this episode was a lot of fun. I needed a good laugh. I needed that laugh so badly. And it felt needed after like the heaviness of the jury episode. So it's like, okay, now we have, which jury? She's off staring at her locket on a hill somewhere. She's not anywhere to be found in this episode. But I really was hoping that, and maybe it will still happen, that as these episodes go and we keep going back to the vision of the mom and dad being at their graves, that we will start to get the intro story updated and evolving as it goes. But for all we know, the story is still the same. She's at her parents' grave, she's mourning them, and a traveling prince upon a white horse, looking like he's straight out of Sleeping Beauty, shows up, and he had the scent of roses on him. And he wiped away the tears from her eyes with his mouth. Of course, the prince bears a striking resemblance to Anthy, but we're not going to talk about that right now. And then, of course, he says, little one who endures such hardship all on your own, don't lose your strength and nobility even when you grow up. And as a token to remember this day, please take this. We shall meet again, will we not? This ring will guide you to me. Which, you know, sounds like something really happy something very encouraging and motivational that you say to make the other person happy. But did the prince ever think that he would see her again? Who knows? Did he say something similar to everyone that he potentially gave rings to? Who knows? Did he just give the ring to Utena? Who knows? We don't know the answers to these questions yet. But of course, she thinks that it could possibly... Now, the narrator says, could the ring the prince gave her be anything other than an engagement ring? But we don't know if Utena totally thought the same. Instead, she was impressed by him and vowed to become a prince herself. So instead of viewing it as... What's interesting about this story is rather than view this ring as being like a promise token of, oh, we'll just try to remain strong and noble, and one day you'll be able to come find me again, and I'll wipe the tears from your eyes, and I'll be your savior, and you won't have to worry for naught. And instead of just being like, oh yes, I'm gonna go find the prince so I can be, you know, protected by him, Utena instead was like, well, I'm gonna protect myself and be like him in that regard. And so it is kind of like a wanting to be saved versus saving yourself sort of scenario, which it's a lot healthier, I feel, to want to be able to be self-sufficient, right? I don't think there's anything wrong personally with wanting your partner to protect you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But I do think that you should also be somewhat self-sufficient, where what if something happens to them? What if they leave you? What if they die? What if they have to go on a mission overseas for months and months? Are you going to be all alone and with nothing to defend yourself or take care of yourself? No, you need to be self-sufficient. But if you want to rely upon someone else, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But you shouldn't be helpless and unable to care for yourself, just in case something happens, because you never know. So I think it's important that Utena has that mindset. And of course, the narrator asks, well, is that really okay? And the answer is yes. But curry on tripping is such a great little play on words. I love it. I love that they have a very robust cooking class, in which my school was extremely small. I'm from a very rural area, a little bit of an impoverished community, not very wealthy at all. And so we did have a cooking class in high school, not middle school. No, they wouldn't trust hormonal preteens with cooking instruments. They barely trusted us freshman year with beakers. Why would they trust us with cooking gear? But they did have a high school home ec class, and they did have a cooking segment of it where you just made like simple things. Nothing crazy. They want to burn the school down. So, but they have a lot of faith in these kids in middle school with the curry, which I guess it's not anything extreme. I love that Anthy joins the very well-regarded brigade of characters that I've watched on this channel that are absolutely god-awful at cooking. I would say Wei Wuxian from Modao Zushi is up there, but they're just spicy. They just like spicy things in general. I would say that if we were going to label the 3 worst cooks on the channel that I've watched so far, fortunately, Anthy only ranks 3rd. Anthy's cooking is like the 3rd worst that I've encountered. I would say the 2nd worst is probably Riko from Kuroko's Basketball. Her cooking's pretty foul, worse than Anthy's. The worst cooking of all is Shi Lian from Heaven Official's Blessing. That's all I'll say about it, but it is the worst. And then it goes Riko, Ida, and then it goes Anthy. So Anthy's in the top 3. She's cracked the top 3 of the worst cooks in anime and or donghua that we've seen, but not the worst of all. So, yeah. And then, of course, I freaking love Nanami. I'm sorry. I get her now. When we first got introduced into her character in episode 3, I was like, what a mean girl. But now, no, I get her. She is great. She's ha 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 ha. I would cosplay as her in a second. I would look terrible in a blonde wig, but I would do it because she's amazing. I love her character. She is so funny. She is so over the top, so extra, but her brother is so over the top and extra. It's genetic. She's just, and the thing about it is, she's not necessarily just vicious. She just likes her brother, and she gets jealous of people that like her brother. And of course, she's just like, she's my kind of villain. She's a little bit hammy. She's over the top and like a peacock. She's great. This episode was everything of 90s humor that I love. And I don't know if the kids these days will find it as funny as I find it, but this is 90s humor. This is just gag after gag after gag, and the repetition making it worse and worse and worse with the elephants. It was just hysterical. I had some favorite moments, but we'll get to them. So of course she's like, Tenjo, Utena, and Himamaya Anthy, just you wait. I'll have you begging for mercy. And they put the wrong curry in. The curry they left down there was the agonizing, blow your brains out, trippy roaring elephant, super spicy 900 billion fold curry. That's why the elephants kept attacking them, because the curry had the elephant in the name. And of course Nanami's like, what? You put the worst curry in? And then they have an explosion. Girls caused collateral damage to the school. The best part about this whole scene is that you slowly fade out with the explosion, and then we immediately cut to the student council meeting where the brother is like, okay, we got to talk about this. Like, I honestly was surprised that they didn't try to have a duel with Utena while Anthy and them switched bodies. Although it does beg the question, would the power of Dios work if Anthy is not in her body? I'm going to guess maybe no, because they didn't offer to do it then during the episode, and that would have been ripe time to do it. So this unforeseen events. I like that Mickey in this whole episode blamed himself. We do see Jury for a hot second, right? We see Jury for a hot second. And Mickey basically says that he wanted Himamaya to make him curry. She risked her life to make me that curry, as we see her body like tossed in the flames. I like that Kiryu is instantly like, no, it's not your fault. But I kind of like the fact that Mickey has this relationship with Himamaya. I don't ship them, obviously, but I do like that he cares for her, and he, is watching over her. It's very sweet. It's very cute. But then Mickey's like, it's my fault. The funniest animation in this whole episode is not only Kiryu's like kind of small in proportion hand, but the tiniest little flip phone. The tiniest, with the most thin antenna possible. That flip phone is for toddlers. He stole it from a preschooler on the way to work and brought it to the school. I know. And then we got to see Wakaba, which is great. Wakaba's still hitting on Utena like she do. And that is our introduction to Utena looking very submissive and meek because she has Anthy in her body. And then vice versa. I like the touch of Anthy with Utena inside of her, holding the bag over her shoulder like Utena does. Like, just that gesture is really cute. And plus the animation style, they can just swap the cell shading for like the shells to make it work. It's really cute. I forget Anthy has glasses. They're more pronounced when Utena's in her body, I guess because Anthy just seems so meek. But the three stooges that follow Nanami around finally get their comeuppance and they get smacked around. I like Mickey's just following to make sure that Anthy and Utena are okay, and Nanami's kind of freaked out by him. But yeah, it's great. So they've swapped bodies. There's been a Freaky Friday moment happen. Utena gets to be great at sports. Or Anthy gets to be great at sports. I still love that whenever Anthy or Utena like do that, yeah, freeze frame when they make a goal, all the basketball boys are like, damn it. It's great. It's so funny. And then Utena watering the garden. And then we see Anthy like climbing, jumping over the fence and escaping the teacher. Utena drinking like the tea really softly. They're playing ping pong because why not? And then of course, they're all selling the candid photos of the two of them for money. I definitely got a Puella Magi Madoka Magica vibe from the cafeteria where Nanami and her henchmen are. showing off the photos, because in that series, there's often like they cut away to the cafeteria and there's like nobody there. And you're at a school, so why wouldn't there be people there? But there's always no one in the cafeteria. So I wonder if Puella Magi Madoka, if it took inspiration from Revolutionary Girl Utena in having the bare and empty cafeteria. I feel like maybe stylistically that was a reference, and it's very subtle. You wouldn't really notice it, but I think it could be a reference there. Possibly. I like that Mickey and Kiryu buy the photos. Why Saionji wasn't buying the photos, I don't know. But yeah, so Kiryu, he ends up getting all the negatives in the photos. The thing I like about Kiryu as a character is that even though this is clearly Nanami's fault, or at least we think it's Nanami's fault until we find out it's just the curry that Anthy makes. What I like about it is that Kiryu never really gets mad at her. He doesn't yell at her. He doesn't say like, stupid sister, why'd you get these girls into this? He doesn't. He's pretty nonchalant and chill about it. He's like, it'll work itself out, which is interesting. I kind of like Kiryu as Nanami's sibling, that no matter how over the top or insane her antics are, Kiryu's just like, no, it's fine. We're siblings. We're all good. And I'm like, I guess because Kiryu's crazy too, so it's fine. But yeah, Utena wants them to switch back bodies as soon as possible. The only time Nanami like gets yelled at is when she starts laughing, and Kiryu, who in this one frame is towering over all of them, he does yell at her, and that's like the one time that the voice actor gets kind of like rough with his voice at her. And she's like, oh no, you've created a real problem. And of course, that's when she begs for his forgiveness and has all of the crocodile tears. And she's like, I'll just go straight to India and get some more spices. And he's like, good. And the three girls are like, wait, go straight to India. And then they just like Team Rocket blast off to India. I love the shot of Kiryu just standing there at the airport watching them take off. It's so ridiculous, but it's so funny. I'm like, why? What? Hilarious. So anyway, we get 2 Greek choir shots today, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was fun. The first time we see the Greek choir is that we see them talking about the idiom just desserts, meaning that if you do something bad, karma is going to make something bad happen to you. It instantly reminded me of, this is not Japanese, but my best friend and another friend of mine, they stayed at our college that we all attended over the summer one year. And there was a group of South Korean exchange students, and they were taking like an English class on campus and spending the summer in the US just learning English, and just, I think it was through a grant. But they had a South Korean teacher come with them to help teach them English. But then my best friend and her friend got to teach them English idioms. They were basically like representatives on campus, like student ambassadors. And they're like, well, we'll teach the kids some US idioms in English, and then the teacher can teach them all the formal stuff. And they said it was hilarious because all the South Korean kids, they hated their teacher. They thought they made fun of him because he was very traditional and very, in their words, boring. And then they loved my best friend and then our other friend Ryan. They loved them because they were like, oh, you taught us all these phrases and everything, and you guys are so cool and stuff. And so my friend said it was hilarious because the one South Korean teacher was getting very upset. He's like, they're just teaching you idioms. And they were like, ah! So I just thought that was funny. It reminded me of that in this episode. So yeah, and so then basically we go back to seeing Anthy be good at pole vaulting, living her AG life, from Banana Fish. And I do agree, if I was seeing myself doing things I normally don't do, I would find that very weird. It would be like if somebody was in my body playing basketball, I'd be like, that doesn't seem right. But anyway, and so we cut to India, where poor Nanami and her friends, with their backpacks and pickaxes, which now we know why they have them, because they're scaling mountains, are being chased by elephants. So they say that Utena says, I don't want to end up getting sacrificed to the rose seal or something. I'm like, getting sacrificed to the rose seal? How does that work? I was like, you mean getting involved in duels? Or can you get sacrificed? What is going on? What's happening? Is this foreshadowing? I guess we'll find out. But Anthy's like, well, I don't mean by mind being like this. And of course, Anthy wouldn't mind because she's not required to do anything anymore. I think it speaks volumes that Anthy in this moment is like, well, I'm fine being outside of my body because that means I have a mind of my own. It's like you swapping places with the genie for a day. So I think that says something. And we'll talk about that when we get about the exchange diary from Saionji. So Saionji, I think I like him more and more. Again, I kind of get his character more and more. Like, Nanami and Saionji definitely rubbed me the wrong way at first. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like them. They seem like jerks and like they're assholes. But then as the series goes on, they're played more for comedy. And like Saionji is just kind of, I don't want to use the word pathetic because I don't think he's pathetic, but he is very, like, you kind of pity him because he's very emotional. He's like that teenager that's writing angsty poetry in their book. And you're just like, yeah, this is the teenage phase where you write angsty poetry. Yep, know what that's like. And he genuinely, I think that he is very emotional and he wants affection, but I don't think he understands what it means to properly give affection. He just wants it in return, right? Because the things that he's done with Anthy, like kind of like abusing her and being mentally and physically kind of abusive, from what we've seen, I'm like, that's not how you get that love in return. And he seems like he gets impatient when she doesn't give him what he wants, and then he kind of lashes out because he's so emotional. And I can get it, I can understand where he's coming from, but it's still not right. It's not justified. So it's like, his character is interesting, but I kind of am like Utena. I kind of pity him a little bit because he feels, it almost seems like he's being led on by Anthy, because if he's her betrothed, then she has to do whatever she wants, whether she actually wants to or not, So it adds more to his character. The more we have of him on screen, the more I like him. That may change next episode. But I do like the more we see Saionji, the more I like him. Right? So then he takes Utena inside Anthy's body away. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like where this is headed. But Anthy waves goodbye like it's not a problem. So in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, well, Anthy doesn't seem concerned. She even offered to go with them, probably just to explain what's going on. But in the end, she seemed fine with it. So at first we cut to the snakes and I was like, did Saionji take Utena/Anthy to his pet snakes? But then we find out that instead Nanami and her friends are inside a truck with all these exotic animals, and Nanami's trying to convince this guy to take him where the spices are. And then we cut back to Saionji in like this like sports closet. You see like weights and mats and everything. And okay, so for a hot second, and I'm sure you all were waiting to see how I reacted to that. For a hot second, I was like, are we about to get kind of sexual here? I mean, I'm not going to put it above this show at all, but I was like, I think the only thing that kept me from like freaking out entirely was that Anthy waved her away like it wasn't going to be anything bad. And Utena was just kind of like, what's going on? And of course he opens up his jacket, breast coat, and pulls out the book of the exchange diary that is also rose themed. And is like, we're going to exchange our love letters to each other. So here's my thing. Saionji and Kiryu. Mickey does not strike me as a sexual person, right? Or really a romantic person. He's affectionate. He's considerate. But he's not like, Mickey does not strike me as a sexual being. And he's like the youngest of all of them. So good. and then now Jury is. Here's my thing. I feel like if we're going on the spectrum, you have Mickey over here. Mickey's like, nah, I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in the music, right? Then you have like, I mean, Anthy and Utena are kind of over there with Mickey as well. Then you have Saionji. And Saionji, I feel, Saionji is kind of like this romantic where he has like the poetry book and he's like, he has this concept of love and what he believes is love, and it's very romantic, and this is what I think it is. But Saionji is a virgin, I'm sure. And I mean that by saying that I don't think he's been intimate with someone. He just has this concept of what intimacy is, but he's not actually experienced it. That's the vibe I get from Saionji. Then you have Jury, who is, and Saionji seems almost like, chivalrous might not be the right word, but Saionji almost seems like he has this concept of love. He's not been intimate, but he has a very romanticized version of it. And it's romantic, but not necessarily sexual, right? Then you have Jury, who's next on the spectrum. She may not have experienced any sexual activity, but her sense of romance teeters over that line of romance into sexuality. Like, she has the romanticism that Saionji does, but then she also like wants to take it to a more sexual level and experience that intimacy in a much deeper context. So she kind of teeters on that edge. Then you have Kiryu, who has legit had sexual relations in this show that we've already seen with Mickey's sister. And I'm sure Kiryu knows exactly what it's like. He is no virgin and has sexual experience. And for him, it's maybe a more carnal sexual relation that he wants rather than romantic. So you have Mickey on one end of the spectrum, then you have Saionji, then you have Juri, and then you have Kiryu, right? And I feel like what this show is setting up is that maybe Saionji from the start seemed like he was the slimy villain, but now he kind of comes across more in a sympathetic light where you're like, no, he's just like a romantic dweeb. Kiryu, on the other hand, comes across like he's just a smooth talking ladies man, but I think he might be the one that's the darkest of them all. We just haven't gotten to it yet, so we'll see if that ends up being the case, though, right? May not be the case. We don't exactly know. But the point is that they exchanged diaries, and God, the best part about this whole thing was the elephant knocking the truck with all of them in out of nowhere. That part was so freaking hilarious. And from there, it got absurd. And I was living for it. I loved it. There used to be a commercial on where the commercial, it was like a series of commercials that kept building. And it was like you followed this character on this journey to try to find this one thing that was the product being sold. And their adventure just got more and more complicated and absurd. I can't remember what the commercial was. So if any of you know what I'm talking about from the 90s, you comment down below. But it was like they were trying to get this one thing. And every commercial, it kept getting more and more ridiculous. And this reminds me of it all the time. But yeah. God, it's amazing that Nanami lived. She fell off a cliff. She got hit by an elephant. She got, just knocked over and barreled over by. I mean, it's amazing. So I do like Utena feeling a little bit like, do I actually open up this diary and read it? Because Saionji's pretty intense. And he was like, once I master the sword, I'll come back and get you, and we can live out what we've exchanged in our vows and our diary. And she's like, this isn't really my business to write in it. So she's like, well, I guess she knew about his feelings and she just kept the diary and hid it even from me. She's like, does she agree with these feelings? Is she mutual with it? Is she consensual? She's like, what do I do? She's like, I should get Anthy to write it, but if I get Anthy to write it, it's going to be in her handwriting and he's going to know that someone else knows about their secrets. So she's like, because Saionji doesn't know that they switched bodies. So she's like, what do I do? She's like, I can't write it myself. And then Anthy's like, oh, it's that exchange diary. She's like, make sure to return it to him. So Anthy knows that it's important to him. And Utena's like, well, do you want me to write in it? And she's like, well, you are me. And she's like, well, I can't butt in on your privacy. And she's like, why, is that wrong? She's like, yeah, it's wrong. And here's the thing that's interesting is that the moment she says it's wrong, she's like, well, then I'll stop. And that wasn't what Utena meant. Utena didn't mean that her writing in the diary was wrong. Utena meant that Utena invading their privacy and writing on behalf of Anthy was wrong. But then we go back to the thing that Utena says. Utena's like, well, she's like, wait, what's the big idea? That's a little extreme. Like, you didn't have to throw it out. And Himamiya says, well, you just said I was only keeping the diary because you never said to stop. You just said it was wrong. So now I can't continue writing in it. And at that moment, it's like Utena's like, oh, you still aren't your own person. You're still doing what someone tells you to. And what's even worse is that she's not doing things because Utena's not telling her to do it. And that's pretty much like the same thing. So Utena's like, well, no, if you want to keep writing in the diary, keep writing in the diary. That's not my decision to make for you. It's very interesting. And I don't know if it's supposed to be talking about, if we're going to talk about the bride and the groom, that the bride listens to her fiance. And we're talking about those gender roles. If we're looking at it through that lens of saying like the bride is the submissive one that listens to the husband. I don't know if it's trying to say that that's like this normative construct that Anthy is playing out, because she kind of is, she kind of is like the stereotypical bride, the stereotypical wife, where it's like, oh, well, you're going to cook for me, you're going to clean for me, and you're going to do whatever I say. And it's like that construct is being challenged, or it's being put forth in front of Utena, being like, okay, what do we do about this? And Utena's like, I'm just a middle schooler. I can't solve these problems. But I have a feeling she's going to have to think about them at least. She's like, well, now I kind of pity Saionji because you're not even, Utena pities Saionji because Saionji is being very heartfelt and genuine with whatever he says. And meanwhile, Anthy's just doing it because she's not been told not to. So it's not genuine. God, the elephant cracking the bridge, it's still so ridiculous. So then Utena goes into the diary to see what he's wrote. And says, Dear Anthy, even now I dream of the time when you and I were engaged. God, this page is great. And I liked it. Utena's like, oh God, he's really serious about this, isn't he? He's really all about this. And then he has this drawing that he's made. To my beloved Anthy, I'm sorry for how long you've had to wait, but you can count on me to overthrow that impudent, ugly he Tenjo. So, and then he draws Tenjo like a man, with no hair and just looking like with the pig nose and everything. And then Utena's like, excuse me? I love she pops off the cap, and then she just writes perv in big letters. The worst thing anyone could write to Saionji. Hilarious. I like that the surfboards that the elephants are on. Yes, the elephants are on when they crash through the waves. They say zoo on them. They either say zoo or 100 for the type of curry. It is amazing. So yeah, Saionji's waiting in the garden for Anthy to come back with his diary, and Kiryu shows up being like, oh, showing your face in the rose garden, eh? I just need these two to bone. I just need Kiryu and Saionji to get together. I don't think this is hard. I don't think I'm asking for much. I don't think Nanami would mind, because it's not a woman, so what does she care? So I think that they should. I think that there's a lot of sexual tension between the two of them. He's like, well, mark my words, Toga. The Rose Bride will soon return to me. And Kiryu's like, oh, Anthy will? I love the fact that I'm just realizing Saionji loves Anthy. Kiryu loves Utena. They just need to swap. Just let Utena and Anthy be together, and you two guys go off together, and everyone will be happy. We'll have solved all the world's problems. We'll have caused world peace. We'll revolutionize the world this way. He's like, no one can tear our love apart. Not even the code of the Rose Seal. And Kiryu's like, oh, silly Saionji. I love when Utena is pretending to be Anthy and gives him the diary. Like, here we go. He's like, oh, this time you feel the same way. And then he opens it up. And as she's slowly backing away, it just says perv. Poor Saionji, and him just being with the light on him and the darkness in his heart and soul. I do feel for him a little bit. That might change next week, but for now, I feel a little bit for him. So then I love they rush to the school entrance, and then this black Cadillac pops up. Nanami comes out with the tan. Girls had hot girl summer, and she found the spice mix, but they trip on, of all things, because bananas are tied somehow to elephants, to all things, a banana peel. That is so freaking hilarious. And then the elephant comes out of nowhere and blows it away. I can't. So damn funny. So then we find out a textbook example of just desserts. Or is it? Or is it? So then we find out that it's not the spice mix that caused the problem. It was just Anthy's cooking in general. They found the spice mix. Somehow the spice mix survived the kitchen blast. We don't know how, but somehow it did. And then just as Saionji and Choo Choo eat from the same curry, that's when they exchange bodies. Now, I do feel kind of sad because Saionji was left out and he's like standing outside the window. He's just missing a boombox on his shoulder, like holding it up, waiting for Anthy to come back to him. But he's like, Anthy, I know why you wrote those horrible things, because you're living with this she-devil. It's like, God. But yeah, I do love Chew as the little Saionji version. It's kind of adorable. And then the idea of Saionji in the tree saying Chew with his voice actor, hilarious. Hilarious to me. So yeah, luckily they all exchanged bodies. Everything is great. Everything's good to go. But next week, Saionji's going to be back for something happening. We don't exactly know what, but it looks like it might be a problem. So, is that part of the castle crumbling? What? What? I, well, who knows? So, anyway, this episode was hilarious. It was really funny. There's some stuff to glean from it, so that's good. But I have a feeling next week is going to be a bit wild. So, anyway. In the meantime, I'm curious to know your comments down below. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Revolutionary Girl Utena. Bye.